I'm Brandi Kruse. Coming up today on Undivided, a huge win for sanity today as even Seattle Children's Hospital appears to be backing away from surgeries for trans youth. Plus, it looks like a controversial gun bill has stalled out in Olympia. And finally, a glimpse into what the Olympia School District will be teaching young elementary school students during this Black History Month. That and more coming up today on Undivided. Remember, you can support our show for just $5 a month by signing up at undividedpod.com. Oh, you hear that? It's a sigh of relief that we can, in fact. Well, Nicole, why you got to ruin my sigh of relief? What is that?
I'm not even really sure why that just did that.
Sigh of relief.
Listen to that.
Can we end the week on a high note? Not a high, but a high, good note. I don't get high. I don't do the show high. First of all, let me just tell you, we're not having a show tomorrow. I'm going to be at LibertyCon with the Libertarians in Washington, D.C. Very much looking forward to it. But I think that's a good thing because we have great news to end the week on, some real, true movements toward restoring common sense and sanity. I mean, we got some other stuff on the show too, but I want to start with the good news because we don't get it very often. I saw this article that came out today in The Stranger, which is like the rag version of the Seattle Times, like far leftist, which I'll get to in a moment. But I actually had a few people, I woke up to messages about it, people saying, oh my gosh, like rejoicing over this. So a little background here. You'll recall that one of the very first things that President Donald Trump did when he took office was to sign an executive order that he says was protecting children from chemical and surgical mutilation. He said it's the policy of the United States that it will not fund, sponsor, promote, assist, or support the so-called transition of a child from one sex to another. And it will rigorously enforce all laws that prohibit or limit these destructive and life-altering procedures. So we said at the time when we covered that, because obviously those things are happening in Washington state, I would say we're kind of ground zero for the radical gender ideology and the acceptance of, taking these drastic measures with a young child's life. There's a lot of things that a kid can do even without parental consent in Washington state. We have the mature minor doctrine, which means even if a parent won't consent to gender transition surgery, if you could find one doctor in progressive Seattle, for instance, that'll call you a mature minor, you can have some life-altering surgeries to change or try to change the appearance of your body to identify as a different gender. So, the Trump administration, with what it did, it basically said that the tool it was going to use to try to force hospitals to stop performing these procedures was monetary. They were basically saying, we're not going to fund it in any way. So if you're a medical institution and you get federal grants and you're providing transition surgeries for minors, we're not going to give you any more money. And so we had said, maybe that will force the hand of even the most extremist policies for hospitals in a place like Seattle. Well, it now appears that it has. And I have to say, this is some of the best news I have heard in a really long time. And all these common sense things that are happening, this fear that they wouldn't happen here because, we have, I called Washington state the resistance, and there's all these ways that the state can continue to do things absent what the federal government wants it to do. So The Stranger published this story today. Seattle Children's postpones trans teens surgery indefinitely. And I saw that and I thought, oh my gosh, thank God. Thank God. So The Stranger publishes this, of course, as a sob story, which we'll get to in a moment. It says, according to the family of this trans teen, hospital staff called their 16-year-old son on Monday evening and explained that the hospital had postponed his surgery in accordance with Trump's executive order banning all federal support for gender-affirming care for trans people under the age of 19. The Stranger went on to say, the family says they were told during a meeting with surgical center staff Tuesday morning that if the hospital lost access to those federal funds, other children's care would be at risk. And the decision was made with the entire community's interest in mind. So there you have it. President Donald Trump's executive order is successful, even in a place like Seattle, even at Seattle Children's, which I would call in Washington state the lead butcher of young kids, enforcing their hand on this, because if they lose money, as they allegedly stated to this family from the federal government, then it puts the lives and the health of other children I mean, Seattle Children's Hospital, don't get me wrong, they do some wonderful work. I know people whose children have been saved thanks to the medical professionals at Seattle Children's Hospital, which of course made it all the worse that they were also engaged in these life-altering surgeries for kids who wanted to be a different gender and whose parents were actively encouraging it in many cases. And so I'm glad, I guess, that Seattle Children's, which has made some of these really horrible decisions, realize that, hey, we cannot put other kids at risk, who have cancer or whatever it is, by violating or pushing back against Donald Trump's executive order. And the stranger says they reached out to Seattle Children's multiple times for comment. Seattle Children's would not comment on what they told this teen or this teen's family, but the article is pretty extensive in explaining sort of what Seattle Children's is going to have to do moving forward. Now, what is the surgery, you might be asking? Because this stranger story, as much as it's a sob story for, oh my gosh, these trans youth, it actually exposes how horrendous some of the things that have been happening at Seattle Children's Hospital are. So for that, I'm grateful. This is a passage that explains it. So it says, just after 5 p.m. yesterday, the surgery department called Ethan, a trans teen, and said his masculinizing chest reconstruction surgery had been postponed on account of the order. The sudden cancellation was exactly what Ethan feared when he read the executive order, but hospital staff had assured him the procedure he'd waited years for would proceed as planned. Allow me to tell you what a masculinizing chest reconstruction surgery is. Ethan is not a boy, Ethan's a girl. And this hospital, Seattle Children's Hospital, was going to cut off her breasts so that this 16-year-old girl could feel more masculine. That's how far gone the left has become in radical gender ideology. So for anyone who says, oh, that kind of stuff isn't happening, we're talking more about gender hormone therapy and all this stuff, or puberty blockers, which are both bad anyway. No, this 16-year-old who the stranger just calls like a boy. No, it's a girl. It's a 16-year-old girl, and Seattle Children's was this close to cutting off their breasts had President Donald Trump not intervened with his executive order. Thank you, Mr. President. I mean, how horrifying is that? And the extent to which, I was laughing about this a little bit this morning, but it's actually insane. The extent to which the stranger paints this as like the worst thing ever, and literally Donald Trump is Hitler for preventing, in this case, a 16-year-old girl from getting her healthy breasts chopped off. So the stranger talks at length to this 16-year-old girl's parents, who are obviously fully in support of the surgery that, and again, may I remind you, it says the hospital staff had assured him the procedure he'd waited years for would proceed as planned. 16-year-old girl waited years to get her breast cut off? You have to wonder what kind of indoctrination is going on at home. But when you read the article, you understand that this is clearly something that these parents actively supported, so much so that they tell the stranger they're going to leave the country, flee the country, because in the U.S. their 16-year-old girl can't get her breast cut off. Here's a passage. I'll just read the whole thing to you. So Sarah's the mom's name. Sarah says the only reason she exists is that her Jewish grandfather left Germany in 1933, the year Adolf Hitler was appointed Chancellor of Germany. Ethan's dad, Mark, says despite his U.S. public school education, he absorbed the same lesson as his wife. The dad says it was clear in 2022 that if Trump got elected, things would get very bad very fast. He says if we had the privilege and the ability to get out, we should. The wife chimes in. Under an ideal circumstance, I would stay and spend my life on the resistance. But I am disabled, and I have a trans child who is also disabled. He's right, we should get out, Sarah says. And Mark says, that doesn't mean we're not fighting. It means we're putting on our mask first. So you have these two parents. Oh my God, can you even imagine this household? These two parents literally comparing they say they're going to flee the U.S. so their 16-year-old girl can cut off her breast somewhere else. They're comparing that to her grandfather fleeing Nazi Germany. And parents like that, ladies and gentlemen, is why Donald Trump's executive order was necessary. So no mistaking it. Donald Trump in Seattle, and this is just the one example, I'm sure of many, made it so that a young girl who's clearly brainwashed by her parents, a young girl who is this close to cutting off her breasts, cannot have that surgery done. I mean, it's so significant. And we have so much of this happening in Washington state. So that's your answer, right? As to whether these medical institutions would push back against the Trump administration, would be willing to give up their federal funding. If even Seattle Children's Hospital is not willing to give up its federal funding because of the impact it would have on other patients and their ability to provide care in other arenas, I can't imagine that other hospitals aren't going to do the same thing. This is very good news. It's very good news. And I will say we're still TBD whether the Attorney General in Washington state is going to sue over this executive order. When we had checked in with Attorney General Nick Brown's office when the executive order was signed, they sent us kind of a vague statement just saying our office is reviewing the order and how it may impact Washingtonians. We may have more to add later. Now, I think it's probably pretty likely that they try to sue over this, especially now that you have instances coming out of trans teens. I mean, this whole Stranger article saying that it's basically painting this as life or death, that you have to cut off a 16-year-old girl's breasts. Like that's a life or death situation. It's harming people. It's not. It's just insane. But to see that, I guess, in The Stranger and to hear that news in one of the most progressive cities in America, their hand being forced by Donald Trump to stop this mutilation of children is the best news I think we've had in a very, very long time. And I always say when I talk about this issue, I always talk about my regret for supporting a parent's right to choose whether their kids go through these procedures. And I've talked about this a lot in the past. I'm not afraid to admit when I've changed my mind, but I think, I'm so in favor of parental rights that I got a little blinded to this, that if a parent wants to consent to a child having one of these life-changing surgeries, then who am I to say that they shouldn't? But at the end of the day, there's a lot of medical procedures that are banned. There's a lot of medical procedures historically that we look back on in horror. And I think these are going to be some of them. And so, I changed my mind on it in the not too distant past. And clearly, there's going to have to be some changes to the way what hospitals provide. And hopefully that's permanent. I can only hope that it's permanent and that we're never going to go back to this place, because in 10 years, maybe not even that long, we will look back at this period of time in the country in horror. So first good bit of news for you. I also want to say an executive order has been signed protecting girls' sports. I think it's also a question of what is the impact it's going to have on Washington state, where our policies still very much allow for. They relied on former President Joe Biden's interpretation of Title IX to say that, hey, yeah, biological boys can compete against girls, no big deal. But today at the White House, and he was flanked by, I don't think we have the actual signing, but he was flanked by, the Riley Gaines and the Jennifer Say people we've had, Jennifer Say, who we've had on this show, who have fought to protect girls' spaces, as he signed this executive order on girls' sports and girls' spaces. White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt explains what the executive order does exactly.
It's incredibly important that Congress immediately acts on this priority. I think the president is really setting the tone, making this a very immediate priority for this administration, just as he promised to do on the campaign trail. And I'd like to get into the executive order a little bit, because it is the news of the day here at the White House, and talk about what this executive action will actually do. So the executive order that the president will be signing later this afternoon, as I said, upholds the promise of Title IX. It also will require the DOJ to abide by the nationwide previous administration's illegal Title IX rewrite that would have dissolved single-sex spaces and opportunities. It also requires immediate action, including enforcement actions against schools and athletic associations comprised of schools that deny women single-sex sports in single-sex locker rooms. The executive order also calls for the convening of private sporting bodies in the White House. We want them to come to this campus so the president can hear in person the stories of female athletes who have suffered lifelong injuries, who have been silenced and forced to shower with men and compete with men on athletic fields across the country. Many of those women will be at the White House today. I encourage all of you in the media to actually talk to them, to hear their stories. And I would also just add one more thing. This is a wildly popular position with the American people. In fact, there was a new poll recently that showed the overwhelming majority of Democrats also support keeping biological men out of women's sports.
Yeah, this is amazing stuff. I mean, so much of what we've railed against for the last several years is falling apart before our very eyes. And again, and they want Congress to pass something on this so it isn't just up to a Trump executive order, which I think is the smart route. And as she alluded to there have been Democratic members of Congress who've said that they don't want their girls to have to participate against biological boys for safety reasons, if not for anything else. And so what she's basically saying is the enforcement of the previous pre-Biden definition of Title IX is something that the Trump administration is going to push. And so what I see happening here essentially is if Washington State continues to allow boys to participate against biological girls in sports and to continue to be in girls' spaces, that it might take a lawsuit to challenge it based on, what Trump has put down. But I don't see how they would be able to continue the policy or would succeed in any sort of legal action. So will they have to, I think Washington State will just, want to get sued for it to happen. I don't think they're just going to give it up willingly. But we'll see, right? This is another thing where it's just one more tool that common sense people have to take this issue to court and to try to protect girls' spaces. Washington is going to continue to be very litigious against all of these things. The extreme gender ideology that, and all these other just far left social issues that they've clung to as a way to scare voters into continuing to put them in positions of power. If they lose their grip on these issues, then that for them is going to be bad electorally. So they'll fight them tooth and nail. So I don't think they're going to give up these things without a fight. But what Donald Trump is doing is making it much, much harder for them to succeed in court on the merits. So this is just awesome. This is an issue we've talked so much about. I think about the young girls we've had on the show who've been fighting back to have, as 13, 14, 15-year-olds to try to just compete against biological girls. Annalie Wilson is someone who is just, we featured her story on Truth Tellers, someone who's become a really important voice after losing the Junior Olympics track meet in Washington State to a biological boy who absolutely smoked her. So this stuff is awesome. I love... It's emotional because it's like Nicole and I have, behind the scenes, I guess, watched so much like the pain that these things have caused. Tamara Pitsky, who is the whistleblower who reported in the Free Press and lost 2 jobs, not 1, but 2 jobs, because she was at Multicare and she was a child therapist and she was pushing a therapist who also talked to children. And she was being forced to basically sign off on just sending kids to the gender clinic. And in speaking out about that, she lost her career. She's now in private practice, but we've seen how hard that has been for Tamara Pitsky. We've had her in multiple times to put herself out there, to go through that very, very publicly, to have previous patients sending her emails about, oh, you're ruining my life and all this stuff. We've seen the emotional drain it's had on her and her willingness to push past all of that because she was doing what she knew was right. What a wonderful day for people like Tamara Pitsky to realize that fewer children are going to be mutilated in the state of Washington, that fewer children are going to be fast-tracked to gender clinics in the state of Washington. And what a wonderful day for people like Annalie Wilson, who, has to be, as a junior high kid, the one who speaks up and speaks out about, no, it's not right for biological boys to compete against us, and has been relentlessly attacked and bullied online and elsewhere for making that decision. So it makes me happy. It's an awesome day for people, and I'm not including us in this. I think for people who aren't in the public spotlight or who didn't want to be, who never wanted to be, who thrust themselves into the public spotlight to make a change and to make things better. What an awesome day for them. So it's just really good news. Can I give you one more piece of good news? Do you have the capacity to absorb it? Isn't this great? One of the worst gun-related bills in Olympia appears to have stalled out. This was the bill, House Bill 1504, that would have required firearm owners to have liability insurance, to get costly liability insurance just for exercising your Second Amendment rights. And of course, this is part of a slew of bills where the goal is basically to make it too cumbersome, too costly to own or sell firearms. And so you just give up. You just give up on your Second Amendment rights altogether. Now, we're still trying to get to the bottom of what exactly happened here, but here's how this came to fruition. Representative Christine Reeves, who is the key sponsor of that bill, she was supposed to have like a coffee with Christine event. Some state lawmakers will routinely have opportunities for their constituents to get together with them and talk, which I love that she did that. But then, of course, we had some inclement weather. And so she posted on Facebook, she said that the coffee with Christine that was supposed to happen yesterday was canceled. She said, for those planning to attend to discuss House Bill 1504 requiring liability insurance for gun ownership, That bill is no longer progressing and is no longer up for consideration this session. She's the bill's sponsor, so she would know. Credit to Anthony Mixer for spotting that Facebook post and for pushing it out late last night. So that's awesome. And I don't have any reason to believe that she's like bluffing so people don't come and talk to her about it. I mean, I guess you wouldn't put it past anything. But she's saying that, and I assume that she thought a lot of people were going to show up at Coffee with Christine and ask her specifically about that bill, because it's been it's blatantly unconstitutional. One of many gun bills in Olympia that are unconstitutional moving through. So we're trying to figure out why that decision has been made by Democrats not to continue forth with that bill. I mean, they don't care about passing things that are unconstitutional. They do it all the time. So that can't be the only reason. But so good news, good news, good news, great news, big smile on my face. I love it. I love it. But there's still a lot of crap stuff happening as well. So I told you guys I'm doing a call to action every day, simple call to action, one bill that has some sort of pending committee hearing or vote coming up where you can make a difference. What was our call to action yesterday? It was on the Republican bill that's going to be heard in front of the House Education Committee, a pro-school choice bill. Now, look, I don't think they're going to allow a pro-school choice bill to pass. But having an opportunity to actually voice your opinion and talk about the failure of our public education system is important. And we heard from one of the bill's sponsors that after we did our call to action yesterday, I mean, hundreds and hundreds of you signed up in favor of that bill. And so that's really important. So we're going to continue to do that. So I did it this morning as well for House Bill 1125. So actually 2 bills are scheduled for executive session early tomorrow morning, 8 a.m. tomorrow morning in front of the House Public Safety Committee. They're 2 really bad public safety bills we've discussed, House Bill 1125 and House Bill 1178. House Bill 1125 is the one that gives activist judges discretion to just go back and erase prison sentences and say, hey, you can get out of prison early because it's in the interest of justice, which is just an insane concept, a truly insane concept. And then House Bill 1178 would reduce sentencing enhancements for people who use guns to commit crimes, for certain gang members, for people who cook meth around kids. I mean, really crazy stuff. But I provided you guys with a link to go ahead and just message your elected leaders on House Bill 1125. To me, which is the worst of the 2. So please do that. It's up on Facebook, Locals, and X. And if you're on Patreon, what we're going to do is so you don't get a separate email for each of these, we're going to put the daily action alert in the comments below each episode so you can easily navigate it there. So if you're looking for it, that's where you're going to be able to find it. So that's happening. But just as a reminder about how crazy this stuff is. Now, I do believe that these 2 bills are going to pass out of committee tomorrow morning. I do. I talked to a Republican on the committee, asked them like, hey, how many Democrats would need to dissent? Is that even realistic? And they said no. They need 2 Democrats on the committee to vote against it. They might have 1. They certainly don't have 2. So I anticipate both of those really bad public safety bills are going to advance out of the Public Safety Committee. But, the path forward after that will be talking to individual legislators who might be on the fence about how bad these ideas are. But just to give you an idea of the thought process here, of the type of people who are pushing these bills. So well, Representative Tara Simmons, she spent time in prison herself. She's a felon, turned her life around, good for her, but has dedicated almost the entirety of her time in Olympia now to pro-criminal bills. She absolutely has a pro-criminal mindset, which has been really disturbing to watch. But she was talking during a hearing this week about this judicial discretion bill, House Bill 1125, and how, again, you could have somebody who's serving time in prison. Their defense team could petition a court. It's not even going to be the judge that sent them to prison. It's not going to be the judge that sat through the trial, that knows all the evidence in and out, that heard the witness testimony and all that. I'm sure there's going to be some judge shopping like, hey, let's take this to King County Superior Court or whatever it is, to try to get a judge who'll just say that it's in the interest of justice to let that person out of prison early. Tara Simmons was talking about this, and one of the types of crime that came up is vehicular homicide. I want you to listen to how she uses the crime of vehicular homicide as an example of a justification for allowing judges to go back and modify sentences in the interest of justice.
I think that people that have a strikeable offense should have a guilty mind. Vehicular homicide is caused by people who made a bad decision to drive while they were intoxicated or maybe not paying attention, looking at their cell phone, and somebody dies. And it's horrible. I'm not condoning that somebody died. It is valid, but I don't think that they should have a strike. Thanks.
But, oh, well, you know, they killed someone or whatever it is, and she starts it off. They should have a guilty mind. To her, having a guilty mind is enough. That's the mindset. That's the person that wants judges to have discretion. I mean, I'm sure there is someone watching who has had a loved one who is killed by a drunk driver. I guarantee there's someone watching who's been affected by vehicular homicide. That lawmaker with that mentality wants a judge to be able to go back if the person who killed your loved one is in prison right now, and in the interest of justice, let them out of prison. No finality for victims. It's absolutely horrifying. In case you're wondering, because I'm sure I've had questions whenever we play a clip of Tara Simmons, her dog's in her lap. Did you see it? Mm-hmm. Love dogs.
Oh, yeah.
Love dogs. I asked somebody with knowledge of the situation. It's an emotional support animal, which it could be. That's fine.
You know what?
You know, there are laws for that.
One of those.
But I'll tell you what, there's a lot of Washingtonians who are going to need an emotional support animal if some of your bills pass.
I'm going to start bringing my cat.
Yeah, Nicole can bring her cat. I'm going to bring Lucky. How big of a dog could you have, though? What if your dog was a giant, sit on your lap, emotional support animal?
Right.
My
what if
gosh.
It relieves itself in the, during a hearing? It's just, there has to be rules. There's societal rules.
Yeah, I don't know, but does this mean, it wouldn't surprise me if someone who pushing bills like that needs some emotional support, because that's just wild. Like, if you can talk that way about someone who killed someone, like, oh, well, they could have a guilty mind, but I don't think they should have a strike, and that's why we need to let people out of prison in the interest of justice. Like, Jesus.
Did they let that dog in jail with her? Like, there's just places you can't take dogs. Sorry.
Yeah, I don't know what the law is, honestly. If you have, look.
No,
I don't know what it is.
Well, I mean, I think everybody makes their own, guidelines or whatever, but I just think that there needs to be societal rules. And she has an office. You can leave the dog in the office. I don't care.
She needs emotional support during the hearing.
It's crazy.
I don't know about, my only argument is, I know there's a lot of vets with PTSD. What if it was a veteran with PTSD who needed an emotional support dog?
Or somebody's allergic to dogs. That's a very common thing.
Anyway, I just wanted to let you know why the little fluffernoodle was there. Okay, so that's some good news, but still a lot of work to be done. So it takes literally 30 seconds to follow through on those action alerts that I send out. I'm going to do one every day. That it's necessary, I guess, for things coming up. You just click on the link, type it out. It literally takes less than 30 seconds. So please do that today. It is making a difference. I mean, the very first one we did yesterday, we heard from lawmakers in Olympia that it was making a difference. So please continue to do that. All right, coming up next, Bob Ferguson wants you to think that he's a changed man, that he's going to be transparent and open. Well, he's not, and we have the evidence of that. First, we talked to so many people who've used Wes Jones to sell their home. Look, the home selling process is stressful, and the home buying process is stressful. Everything involved in changing where you live is stressful, but Wes Jones and his team can take some of the stress out of the process, especially if you have a home that you need to sell. Let's say, gosh, I've been putting off some cosmetic upgrades. I know it would help me get a better price for my home, but I don't have the money to do that. I don't have the time to deal with that, manage the contractors, whatever it is. Wes loves to do that stuff. He literally loves it. It's his favorite thing to do. He's the son of a builder. He can not only help you manage those projects and tell you what he thinks should be done, what's going to be a good return on the investment, he can even help you pay for it up front through his Listing Boost concierge service. So he's got your back. He's going to try to make it the whole process as unstressful as possible. And that's what undivided listener Sue told us about Wes, is that he just really put her at ease. For instance, she was selling her home in the winter months. She felt a little uneasy about that, but Wes made her feel great about it.
It's time for me to go home, back to Wenatchee. That's where my mom is, and she's getting up there in age. So I need to help her and start thinking about my own retirement. So
did you feel get the sense that Wes had a plan, knew what he was talking about? How comfortable did he make you during the process?
Oh, he made me feel very comfortable. He answered all my questions, and he responded to them by email or text, whatever I needed. Just kind of an extra helping hand here and there whenever I needed it. He was always there to support me, and his team is just wonderful.
Yeah, but of course it's not enough to just be nice and to be helpful and to be available and to be a helping hand. You got to have results, right? And he always does. He was able to sell Sue's house for over list price really quickly. She was so happy with the results. So Wes is just the whole package. What can I say? Sellwithwes.com. Nicole's looking at me. Laying it on a little thick today, Brandi. Sellwithwes.com, a better way. You told me I'm good at ad reads. Look, this is what I like. Apparently, this is my specialty. Sellwithwes.com, a better way to sell your home. You know what else is my specialty? Calling out Bob Ferguson for his dual personality disorder. Bob Ferguson wants you to think he's a changed man. The media falls for it hook, line, and sinker. It's obviously not true. And this is one example of that. So you remember... So Bob Ferguson has a horrible track record when it comes to transparency as Attorney General. He would get sued over it. He'd have to file, they had to pay out fines in courts for withholding documents in discovery in some really severe cases. Transparency is just not something he's known for. And then he takes office and he says he wants to speed up the pace of government. He wants to improve the public disclosure process. He hired Jesse Jones, get Jesse, like the preeminent media investigative reporter in Seattle to help him with this website that's going to improve transparency. So he wants you to believe like he's all about transparency. Is he though? So Dale Whitaker, who's a former political candidate in Washington State, he got this via a public records request and he put it out on social media yesterday. We have confirmed the authenticity of it. It is headlined, it's from the communications director for Governor Bob Ferguson, Brianna Aho, who came over with him from the Attorney General's office. She was also his communications director as when he was AG. It says communications guidance. And it went out to all the state agencies, cabinet level positions. And it basically, in a nutshell, is don't you do or say anything to the media without talking to us first. I mean, that's the general gist of it. Just a few things. It has some guidance here. So it says guidance on the language, right? While cabinet agencies have different roles, we're all working toward the same core mission. Look for opportunities to highlight these themes: improving government, centering the people, speeding up government, and improving customer service, okay? And then it says, here's your guidance on press releases. All press releases must be sent to the governor's office communications team for review at least 48 hours ahead of the anticipated release date. All press releases must be written in plain language. On media interviews, agencies must provide advance notice to the governor's office if the agency director or other agency staff plan to do interviews with major news outlets. This includes the Seattle Times, Como TV, Cairo TV, Fox 13, and King TV, as well as national outlets. Notices should be at least 24 hours in advance. If an interview is set less than 24 hours in advance, notice should be as soon as possible and when the interview is confirmed. Oh my God, this is just so much. Agency communications staff or the agency director may provide this notice to the governor's communications director. The governor's office may require a discussion with the agency director ahead of the interview to understand the anticipated scope. If an agency director has unplanned contact with a major media outlet, notice must be provided to the governor's office as soon as possible. Like if you have unplanned contact, it just sounds like I ran into so-and-so. Jonathan Cho followed me to the grocery store, so I got to notify the governor's office about it. As far as social media, the governor's office will generally not require advanced review of social media content, but should be notified of any post that gets significant interaction, reach, or media attention. Like, this is tyrannical. This is crazy. So the governor's office is basically like anything goes through us, which isn't even practical, I'll say. It sounds crazy, but it's not even practical. You know, I worked in a newsroom for a long time, as you know, and it was very rare that a press release would come to us like any time in advance of something major. A lot of it had to do with breaking or developing news. And so I just see this as thwarting the ability to quickly get information out to the public. And also, do they have so little trust of his agency and his cabinet appointees that they can't so much as like send out a press release without running it past the governor's office or do an interview with a media outlet without sitting down with the governor's staff to better understand the scope of what's going on? It's really crazy stuff. Now, we reached out to Brianna Aho, who sent that memorandum, just to make sure it was authentic. And she responded. She said, I can confirm I sent that guidance. You will note that it does not ask anyone to submit anything for approval. The goal is to help me and my team learn about what's going on in the agencies and look for opportunities to amplify news. Do any of you believe that for one solitary second? No. And I mean, I had Nicole, we sent a request for comment, and I had basically in that, Nicole said, here's how Brandi's going to characterize it. She's going to characterize it as authoritarian. And so that's Brianna, I think, responding to what we told her I was going to say about this memo. But here's the thing, is like, that sounds, oh, hey, no, we just the goal is to help me and my team learn about what's going on in agencies and look for opportunities to amplify news. Like, that sounds harmless. But I saw that and I said, gosh, that media policy sounds real familiar. I swear we've talked about kind of a similar media policy not too long ago. Oh, that's right. Washington State's Domestic Violent Extremism Task Force, back at their last meeting on January 10th, the task force run by the Attorney General's office. Who was the Attorney General's office on January 10th? Bob Ferguson. Who was the press person for the Attorney General's office on January 10th? Brianna Aho. Here's what was said at the very beginning of the task force meeting, Bob Ferguson's task force, on January 10th.
If you are contacted by press, that means a reporter, blogger, any member of the public inquiring about this task force, please contact me or another AGO staffer before responding to any request. Second, we ask that you do not make any statements or act on behalf of the task force independently. All statements should be made in coordination with the AGO staffing team. We have a communications team that can help assist and streamline these requests.
Seems like a pattern, doesn't it? So when he was the Attorney General's office, task force members, as we covered on the show, were instructed, you will not speak to the media. You will contact the Attorney General's office immediately if a member of the media reaches out to you. So we could coordinate, our messaging. So that was Bob Ferguson's policy while he was Attorney General and Brianna Aho's policy. I don't know which of the two of them felt that way, probably Bob. That was their policy then, and that is very clearly his policy as the governor. I would say it's controlling, at the very least, but this is some Chinese Communist Party stuff. This is hey, let's get our propaganda together, and I don't want anyone saying anything that's out of line. Now, for the record, a governor, just as a president, for instance, I would anticipate, let's apply this to President Donald Trump so I can take my political lenses off and my distaste for Bob Ferguson and set that aside. I would hope that a couple things, that President Donald Trump's appointees care what he has to say about significant events and want guidance on messaging. But I would also assume that he's chosen people, and as we've seen, he's chosen people that agree with his policy prescriptions, that agree with his general view of what he wants to do for the country. So does Bob Ferguson have no faith in his cabinet appointees that they can communicate with the media in a productive way? And look, if they go off script, then he can fire them if he wants to. But this idea that every single thing has to be funneled through the governor's office, it's going to delay information getting out to the public. It's going to delay information getting out to the media. It's also going to cut down, I think, on the number of media interviews, because if it's all being funneled through Bob Ferguson's office, he's probably going to tell them, don't do media interviews at this person, this person, this person, this person, this person, this person, only the people who are really nice to us. And so it's just really authoritarian, and it's totally contrary. It's just evidence that he is not the person he's claiming to be. You can't be like, I got Jesse Jones to make government more transparent, and then have your staff send out a one sheet to all your state agencies saying, don't ever speak to the media without telling us first. Kind of crazy, isn't it? He is who he has always been. This is just a facade that is slowly fading away, and soon he will be back to where he started.
Just like Trump, very strategic.
Yeah, very strategic in different ways. All right, we have a double dose of unbelievable, including a little sneak peek at what's happening in the Olympia School District for elementary students when it comes to Black History Month. Ooh, you're not going to want to miss this.
Opt
out today. Find out what your kids are being.
Buffer.
Find out what your kids are being taught in Black History Month. First, I have told you guys to take the First Mark Challenge. I mean, we all need insurance. And the process of trying to figure out what insurance is right for you, how much coverage, what the coverage means, is complicated. I mean, if you're not working in the insurance world, how do you ever sort through that? You might have that little app that tells you, oh, you can save this amount of money in this amount of time and all that stuff. I'm telling you, that's not good enough. We're adults now. We need an adult insurance and an insurance broker to navigate it for us, especially when it doesn't cost you anything to do. So I tell you guys to take the First Mark Challenge, and here's what they're going to do. Set aside some time for a phone call with them. You're going to gather up your insurance policies as you have them now, and you're going to send them to them. You're going to talk about your insurance, your current insurance needs. Maybe you need more insurance for something, or you've got life changes coming up. Maybe you've got a teen who's about to be a driver, whatever it is. They're going to go out, they're going to shop their market of carriers, and they're going to come back with their recommendations. Their recommendation could be, hey, we can't beat the prices you have now, so I would stay with your current providers, and if anything changes at a later date, hit us up. That's happened before. Or like Spencer, they could come back and say, hey, we can save you $1,600 a year. Or like Chad, an undivided viewer, they could say, hey, we can save you $100 a month. And I think that's a pretty good deal, right? So just a little investment of time, and it can pay out dividends. You can save hundreds, if not thousands of dollars a year. So take the First Mark Challenge today, firstmarkinsurance.com. Firstmarkinsurance.com. The very best part is they work for you, not the insurance companies. So they are going to have your best interest in mind, even if that means they don't get your business. So, all right, should we do 2 unbelievable segments today? Let's do it. We've got time. Let's check in on what's happening in the Olympia School District, shall we? All right, how is America's wokest school district celebrating Black History Month? Well, if you have a child who is as young as kindergarten, they're probably going to be learning something for Black History Month, which, look, Black History Month is fine. Even Donald Trump is recognizing Black History Month. There's nothing wrong with Black History Month, okay? It's how people interpret it and what they're going to teach kids and how they teach those things that matters. And we know that the Olympia School District has a really, really horrible track record when it comes to political and social indoctrination. Another opportunity to plug our documentary, Operation Indoctrination, free across all our platforms, which will tell you everything you need to know about the Olympia School District. But we were sent this by our friend Alicia Perkins. So teachers were sent Black History Month resources. Kind of help guide, right? Guide lessons or projects that they might do throughout the month of February. Now, there are resources there for elementary students and teachers and for 6th grade through 12th grade, which is appropriate, right? Kindergartner is not going to learn the same thing that a 12th grader is when it comes to Black History Month or whatever you want to do. So I'm sure that this is, of course, going to be age appropriate. You know, they're just going to talk about maybe the contributions. What did I learn during Black History Month? Like, guy who created peanut butter and Rosa Parks and all the, what's the guy who made peanut butter? I just remember that. That stands out to me. You know, in elementary, I remember learning about the contributions of Black Americans, the history of Black Americans, yes, slavery and all of these things, the civil rights movement. Was it Carver?
The peanut butter guy? Yeah. It looks like Marcellus Gilmore Edson.
Is this up for debate? Oh,
I don't know.
Oh, I thought it was somebody else. Okay, anyway, moving on from that. So it's going to be age appropriate, right? Like all that stuff. Hey, contributions of Black Americans. I love it. Nope. In the Olympia School District, elementary students will be taught a pyramid about overt and covert white supremacy and the spewing of anti-blackness as a putrid meat and spoiled fruit that keeps the beast sustained. This is, honest to God, one of the links in guidance for elementary school teachers for Black History Month that has this pyramid about white supremacy. And it's divided at the top. It's the worst kind of white supremacy, socially unacceptable. And then everything below that is covert white supremacy, socially acceptable. So they say... At the very top is lynching. Yeah, that makes sense, right? Hate crimes, blackface, the N-word, swastikas, neo-Nazis, burning crosses, racist jokes, racial slurs, and the KKK. Okay? Let's talk about some covert white supremacy. Nicole, let's see if you have any covert white supremacy. All right, let's see here. White savior complex is covert white supremacy. I kind of agree with that one. Is MAGA on there?
Yep.
Make America great again. Okay. Telling someone you don't sound black.
Celebrating Columbus Day.
Gotcha. Denying your white privilege. So if you say you're not racist, that is in fact racist. Prioritizing white voices as experts. Okay. Let me
Treating
see
kids
here.
of color as adults.
Eurocentric beauty standards. That is covert white supremacy. Appointing yourself as a white ally. Oh, you can't do that yourself. You can't say I'm an ally. Somebody else has to appoint you. Here's mine. Here's my favorite ones here. Okay, weaponizing whiteness. That wasn't one of them. Saying, but we're all but we're all one big human family.
Or all lives matter.
Yes. Nicole, there's only one human race.
Right.
That's white supremacist. Yeah.
Yeah.
Saying all lives matter, for sure. Then it says fearing people of color. That's just very, that's a weird one to throw in there. So apparently this is all appropriate to teach elementary school students for Black History Month. Not talking about actual Black history and maybe the contributions and history of Black Americans in this country, but making white students feel bad. That's the goal, right? Making white students feel bad. And can I just say, Nicole, you bring that back up for one sec. Mm-hmm. So this link went to this white supremacy pyramid, and the text that was accompanying it was crazy. It was like this writing by this Black author. And again, this is something that's deemed acceptable to inform teachings for elementary students. It says, white supremacy and anti-blackness, a covert and overt beast. This spewing of anti-blackness is the putrid meat, the spoiled fruit that keeps the beast sustained. And so when we sit and wonder why our country's industries prioritize human health and well-being over profit, this is why. When we sit and wonder why our Black, Indigenous, and people of color community members are slain in public daylight by white people and police officers, and then those same white people and police officers are able to return to their lives, return to their families, return to their homes, this is why. When we see the differentiation in treatment of white people wielding guns to protest stay-at-home orders and wearing masks in the midst of a pandemic that is disproportionately killing BIPOC and the BIPOC protesters who are demanding justice for the murders of Black people by the police, this is why. This beast, white supremacy and anti-Blackness, is real. It can be both covert and overt, but in both of its forms, the beast is violent. So you're going to teach elementary kids about a violent beast of white supremacy?
Putrid meat.
You guys, the Olympia School District is never going to wake up. So one of the parents that sent this to Alicia Perkins said that one of the teachers pushing this is Mix Hamilton. Not Mr. or Ms. Mix, MX Hamilton, because it's they, them. And that was like, oh, I remember at Mix Hamilton, the teacher in the Olympia School District, because we'd done a story on Mix Hamilton before, because back in September, Mix Hamilton had sent out, parents and kids get like, oh, what's on that? And this is for elementary school kids. Oh, Teacher's Corner, upcoming dates to know, and what's going on in the classroom this week. And it said identity unit. And so, of course, like a parent inquired about this identity unit. What's this identity unit? This is for 4th grade, mind you. The identity unit was a full-on lesson that was going to be taught where they were going to read books called My Name is Yoon, How Nivi Got Her Names, A Kid is a Kid is a Kid, like pro kind of trans books and gender stuff. They're going to have lessons on the unit opener, rainbow name acronyms, pronouns, celebrating names. They were going to identity flowers, create a little art project, and then identity posters. Yeah, so this 4th grade teacher that's now pushing this like white supremacy pyramid, we've already talked about her on the show before because she taught 4th graders an identity unit where they were going to have full-on lessons about rainbow name acronyms and pronouns. Yeah, so if your child goes really to any school district, but the Olympia School District in particular, you need to ask what they're going to be taught for Black History Month. You need to ask for whatever lesson plans they have. You need to ask for the material. We have the Parental Bill of Rights. The Parental Bill of Rights today is in full effect in the state of Washington, which allows you more latitude to get not only actual curriculum, but to be able to get supplemental material as well. So take advantage of that while it's still here, because Democrats in Olympia are trying to erode it and take it away from you. So reach out to your child's school, figure out what's happening with Black History Month, ask for the documents that are supporting the lessons and all of that. And if you don't like what you see, opt your child out. say, my child will not be participating. If they tell you that opting out is not an option, then you can opt them out by having them not go to school those days. So just some advice for you. All right, Nicole, I think I'm going to, well, I already told people to do a double dose. In our second dose of Unbelievable, let's go over to the city of Spokane and learn about their innovative solution to deal with the fentanyl crisis. Boop, you know, when you got a fentanyl crisis and a drug crisis that's leading to a crime crisis and quality of life issues where businesses are closing down, where restaurants are closing down, I can think of some good ways to deal with that. More of a police presence. Make sure that people are actually arrested when they're illegally using narcotics as a way to try to force them into some sort of treatment. I mean, there's a lot of options there. But if you're the city of Spokane, you're going to get creative because you're nothing if not weird. So in the city of Spokane, this is from the Center Square. Here's their idea to crack down on drug use in downtown Spokane. They're going to limit the sale of booze and pipes unless stores offer free naloxone. Oh, yes, you heard that correctly. It says, with few solutions left, Spokane has banned single-serve alcohol sales downtown, as well as drug paraphernalia, unless the seller also provides free naloxone, which, if you're not familiar, that's like Narcan, an overdose reversal drug. Alcohol-related incidents within the downtown precinct increased by over 60% in the last 3 years. 70% of the city's drug offenses occur within the boundaries. So their hot idea for dealing with drunk homeless people downtown, people using fentanyl out in the open downtown, is if they go to buy a pipe or they go to buy a Mad Dog. Is that what's called, right?
Sure. I don't know. It's not my specialty.
Right? The Mad Dog 50? Hold on. Now somebody's going to say that's not what's called, Brandi. Yes, it is. Hold on.
Like a tall boy or like a...
Yeah. You buy a little single can.
Yeah.
It's called a Mad Dog, right? Yeah, I think so. So if you go to buy those, you can, put it in your paper bag and walk around. They have to also give you a thing of naloxone or they can't sell it to you. Let's just really quickly. Naloxone doesn't do anything for alcohol. So if you're down there drinking yourself to death, naloxone isn't going to bring you back to life. Now, you could use it if you see your buddy who's overdosing on fentanyl or something like that, but naloxone serves a very specific purpose. And also, you're not stopping the drug use. Nothing about this idea stops the consumption of single booze, beers, whatever it is, by homeless people on the streets. Nothing about it stops people from smoking fentanyl, injecting fentanyl, whatever it is. You're just giving them something that can bring them back to life so they can continue to do it. Now, I'm all in favor of naloxone and Narcan. I don't think we should just let people die on streets when we have this little thing you can spray in their nose to bring them back to life. And I've seen firsthand people who've turned their lives around because they were brought back to life and it made a difference in their life. But this idea that we're just going to continue to do that and it's going to be a solution. Well, how is that worded in the Center Square?
Well, I think they're trying to use it as a deterrent.
With few solutions left.
Yeah.
You can't tell me that you have few solutions left.
Yeah. I mean, part of the problem that they're hoping to solve by doing this is that there's not as much garbage around because it's just a distraction, a deterrent.
So they're hoping stores won't do this because they don't want to give out naloxone.
Exactly.
Yeah. And that's fine. And if that's the thing, but you think that these homeless people are going and buying pipes to do their drugs? No, they got pipes. They're all sharing the same pipes. They'll do their drugs in any way they can. So that's just stupid.
So it's nice for the people that don't have to look at garbage anymore, I guess. But for the actual people that are suffering on the streets, like, get them some help.
Right.
Or force them into help.
It's not even a Band-Aid. It's not even a Band-Aid. We do all these things.
It's not to address the real problem.
They make the crisis so bad and then they throw these dumb ideas at it that aren't doing anything at all. And you cannot tell me that you have few solutions left. Enforcing the law. Arresting people over and over if you have to who are using drugs out in the open. Washington State needs to change its laws so it's easier to put someone on a hold because you're a threat to yourself and others if you're down there with the Fetty leans. You're obviously a threat to yourself, and we have a lot of people who go off on, it's a huge driver of the mental health crisis that we have. You are absolutely a threat to yourself or others. They should be able to put you on an invol hold. It shouldn't even be controversial at this point. We're not talking about sending grandma to the old folks' home so you can take all her money. That's not what we're talking about here. We're talking about a clear standard of a threat or harm to yourself or others and a temporary hold so that you can get the help that you need to sober up. Not when they go by a toll boy, giving them a thing of naloxone and we did what we could. Just crazy. Spokane is becoming Seattle very, very quickly. All right, well, to get to some national news, we're going to talk to Zach Abraham. We had an awesome conversation about tariffs and what's going on, maybe in President Trump's mind, the best of our ability to read his mind. First, I have lost 40 pounds on the Eastside Weight Loss Clinic program. I'm now back to my pre-pandemic weight, which is nice. I get asked about the program a lot when I'm out and about, and, there's so many options out there, I think. People are really attracted to these quick weight loss solutions like the injections and the drugs that are coming out on the market. But those are things you're going to have to use and buy for the rest of your life. I hear so many stories of people who stop using them. They gain all the weight back. There's a ton of side effects associated with them. There is no way to lose weight like learning to live a healthier lifestyle. That is the most surefire way to lose weight and to keep it off. And that's what Eastside Weight Loss Clinic helps you to do. They teach you what to eat in the right portions and then how to maintain some of those healthy habits so that you can maintain your weight loss. I lost most of those 40 pounds in just 2 months. Think of how transformational that is. I lost 30 of those pounds in 2 months. And so that motivation really keeps you going. And so that was like 2 years ago now that I've been able to do that. So, all right. So schedule a free consultation with Dr. Ryan Coogan and his team. EastsideWeightLossClinic.com, EastsideWeightLossClinic.com. Talk to Dr. Ryan Coogan and his team and see if the Eastside Weight Loss Clinic program is right for you. All right, let's do our daily show poll, and then we'll get into our conversation with Zach Abraham about tariffs. I asked you on Patreon, Locals, and X, do you trust public schools to teach Black History Month without inserting political or social opinions? Of course, based on the story I just told you out of Olympia. Nicole, yes, no, or it depends on the teacher.
Well, I definitely don't trust them. However, I did get an email last night. I should have had this email ready to go, actually.
Should have, I guess.
From a teacher that said, this is not happening at my school, but I still acknowledge it's happening at others. And she kind of wanted to have a discussion about it. But I do believe there are some schools that aren't like this, that aren't indoctrinating
100%.
kids. And I want to not say that. I want to make sure we remind people we're not saying every school, but it's just, you got to do your research. You got to find out what they're teaching your kids.
Right. And let me also say for people, it's not my job to point out when
they're doing their
when
job.
Government workers are doing their job. Like if you're doing your job and you're teaching kids, there's a ton of good teachers out there. Of course there are. And they're just as frustrated, by the way. They're just as frustrated about some of this insanity that's like bringing their profession down. Yeah, not my job to sit here and spend time, regardless of what your profession is, like applauding a government worker for doing what they're supposed to be doing. It is my job to point out when they're not. And there are, unfortunately, a growing number of instances. And a lot of this is driven by policy from OSPI. And that's why it's such a big deal. The political and social indoctrination, hiding secrets from parents. This is stuff that's driven from the top on down. So yeah, absolutely. There are some teachers who would never show elementary school kids a pyramid of white supremacy. Okay. So 100%. So Nicole, you're a no, or depends on the teacher?
Correct. Well, I'm a never trust, verify.
Yeah, 100%. Most people saying no. Bloom Kitty, our school district in Bellingham, uses Black Lives Matter curriculum. My son and my nephew both have asked why we don't have a good heritage after experiencing the teaching there. And I'd homeschool, but I'm a single mom working full time, so all I can do is try to prepare them. And I think that's it. And it sounds like you have an open relationship with your kids where they're willing to come to you and say, like, I feel this way based on something I learned. And that's often how we get tips from stories is kids came home and told their parents that something was taught that made them uncomfortable. And they felt okay enough talking to their parents about that. Bill Swick, I think it depends entirely on the school, the administration of the school, and the teachers teaching the material. Is there a risk of a political agenda? 100%. Let me see. Ron, I chose depends on the teacher because it highlights a critical issue. I live with a dedicated educator who passionately wants to teach to empower her students, but she is consistently undermined by her colleagues and school leadership. This situation must be addressed immediately. It is unacceptable for teachers to be subjected to bullying, whether it comes from fellow staff members or school administrators. Moreover, teachers struggle to transfer to other schools or districts because they often receive dishonest referrals that do not reflect the reality of their situations. I've heard that before. The union is also failing its members. It needs to take a stand and support teachers who face legitimate concerns regarding curriculum and safety. Change is necessary for the well-being of both educators and students. And I think Ron brings up something that we don't talk a lot about is it's not even just good teachers who are stuck in a bad situation, but they're doing the best they can. It's good teachers who are actively being bullied, targeted, pushed out for not abiding by these desires to push political and social agendas, and these desires to, teach this Black Lives Matter curriculum. So it's a tough situation for those teachers to be in. I think there are some schools where you can't just be a normal teacher who wants to do the right thing without your life being made a living hell. So thanks for sharing that story, Ron. Let's do two more. Jeff, the only thing I trust Washington Public Schools to do is take my money, scream about wanting more of my money, and continuously underperform. Yes, 100%.
Safe bets.
Ken says, not a snowball's chance in hell. They can't keep their opinions and bias out of it. So that is a hard nope. And then Kayla, I'll just read this one because it kind of goes along with that sentiment. I cannot disparage my children's teachers whom I feel I know well and are very common sense teachers. I'm very involved and review the curriculum and volunteer regularly. We are lucky that we live in a more conservative pocket of our district in Puyallup, but I am also very aware of public schools and agendas so that I can intervene if needed. History is important and it must be taught accurately so that we do not repeat instances of injustice. That said, we don't need to make children feel like they're at fault for history because of the color of their skin. That is not teaching history, it's teaching hate. Great comment, Kayla.
Love it.
It's a good one. Do you have a dog as your... Oh, it's a cat. Oh, cute cat, Kayla, as her profile picture. That's a cute feline. What's your cat's name? All right. Very thoughtful stuff, per the usual. I expect nothing less from all of you guys. All right. So it was like tariff week in the United States where Donald Trump came out. He's like, you get a tariff, you get a tariff, you get a tariff, unless you do what we want you to do. And that worked when it came to Canada and Mexico, at least for the time being. But I think it's still TBD whether Trump's tariffs are going to work on China, which is obviously much more powerful. So I had to talk to our friend Zach Abraham with Bulwark Capital about all of it. Canada, let's separate Canada and Mexico from China for a second. Canada and Mexico fold like a cheap suit. Any surprise there?
No, they had to.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's, and look, this was, so really quick primer. Okay. I have heard more bad takes on tariffs than anything else I've ever heard. Okay, so let's make this really simple.
Sure.
Think of a tariff just like an increase in sales tax. Okay, that's all it is. So it's not like all of a sudden you're going to go to the store and they're going to be like, that's $6.99 plus an extra $2.50 for the tariff, right? It's just it's a built-in tax, right? So now the flip side of that is I hear a lot of people saying that's going to crash the economy. Tariffs alone will not crash the economy. If you start throwing around massive 25, 50, 100% tariffs with major trading partners, that will crash the economy. Now, on the flip side of it, because I feel like, once again, I'm stuck between two arguments, neither of which are based in merit or fact. Okay, the other side of it, I've heard on the pro-Trump side. Now, obviously, I'm a big fan of what's going on here politically in this country, but finance is not subject to the ambiguities of politics, right? There's hard answers. So I've heard people saying, no, this is going to be good for the economy. Complete nonsense. Tariffs can be good for the economy like increased income tax can be good for the economy. It's not, right? And that's why there's the old adage of nobody wins a trade war. Okay, flip over now back to the other side. This to me is absolutely no different than the first time he was president. And I heard people on the right and left hand-wringing, it's going to crash the economy. It's going to crash the economy. Trump isn't an idiot, and he doesn't have idiots around him. If you think Trump really wants to institute 25 to 50% tariffs and leave them in place, you're an idiot. All right. What he's doing is just maximizing leverage, which is what he should be doing. And the only way a threat like tariffs is viable is if they think that you will pull the trigger. Right. So he has to play it like this. Now, does he run the risk of playing his hand too strong and having it backfire? Sure, but it hasn't. Right. So the other thing is, in these trade quote unquote wars, I also don't think it's a bad thing. I don't think that you're being a bully or a bad neighbor by reminding people, hey guys, there's a pecking order here, and be aware of the shade that we provide you. And at the very least, be a good neighbor and make sure you're not letting poison infiltrate our streets, right? I'm not asking you to fight it for us. I'm just asking you to be a decent neighbor. And until you are, I don't have a lot of interest in helping you, because right now we've established relationships with the vast majority of the rest of the globe that is all cost and no benefit to us. And that has to change.
Yeah. And I mean, you saw, and I agree with you, and I appreciate the nuanced take, because I'm growing very quickly tired of like everything Trump does, from the right is like, oh, perfect. There's no, it's like, that's just ridiculous. I mean, the idea that if, the tariffs, he had to make good on it, that it wouldn't impact Americans. And even Donald Trump said that. He said, yeah, this might hurt people for a while. So yeah, I totally agree with you on all of that. Is China a different beast though? Because China has much more power than Mexico, much more power, much more money than Mexico and then Canada. And so those tariffs are moving forward. They announced retaliatory tariffs. So is China a different story to you?
Yeah, and I think that it is a completely different story to me. And I think that it is a much more complicated story. I think the tariffs are correct. I personally believe that with China, and I could be way off, I'm not some experienced geopolitical expert, but I think it is very important to push China and make them a little uncomfortable without inciting them. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And without being insulting. China's done a lot of shady things, but in some ways, I almost I respect it differently because I feel like they're more open about it, right?
Sure.
They're not trying to pretend like they're our best buddy, right? And they're openly competitive. But I do think that China's biggest issue is their currency and their real estate bubble, and any tariff that we levy on them decreases the flow of dollars into their economy, which is tightening that is us throwing tariffs on them is the python ratcheting it up one more quarter turn. It's just more pressure, right? And I think the trick with China is we want to pressure them in the right direction, like I said, without making them feel like they don't have an out.
And I would also say, though, back to our conversation quick about Mexico and Canada and how quickly they folded. And, you had mentioned it's believing that he'll make good on it is the key, right? Believing that he'll actually do it. And actually, the media and the Democrats kind of help Trump with that, because when they lose their minds, like, oh my God, this will be devastating, that kind of like props up this narrative. And I do, believe obviously he would have made good on it, but it kind of props that up, right? Like they're kind of helping Donald Trump scare Mexico and Canada.
Totally. And and I would be surprised if this wasn't part of the strategy going in, meaning they are now, look, the Republicans have shown the ability to snatch victory or snatch defeat from the jaws of victory many times.
Yeah.
But I think that the Democrats are reeling and are in a crisis that is tantamount to, if not greater than any political crisis I think either one of the parties has faced in the last 50 years.
Agreed.
They have a total crisis of identity. They have a crisis of leadership. They have no message. They have no platform. Their platform has been resoundingly rejected by the American people. And in fact, I think if you restage the election now, I think the margin of victory would be 2 to 3 times greater. And I think that, yeah, they are absolutely helping. And this is why I've referred to it and see this as such an incredible opportunity. They are so off balance. They don't know what to do. Yeah. They really don't. They don't have a critique. Every time they try to critique it, Schumer tried to hold that rally. Right?
Don't ruin it. That's our closing sanity check for the show today. Don't ruin it.
Okay, but even CNN is starting to mock these people.
Oh yeah, it's
right.
Bad.
Like they have nothing. It's like Trump took all the bullets out of their gun and they're just sitting there firing blanks and they don't have an answer, so they just keep pulling the trigger.
Yeah,
it is hilarious. It is. Then they answer with promoting David Hogg.
Oh yeah,
I mean,
crazy
are you
stuff.
joking?
I mean, it's the equivalent of literally throwing something at the wall and seeing what sticks. I mean, last week it was the egg thing, like, oh, the price of eggs. It was like this collective Democratic strategy. And this week it's Elon Musk is an unelected billionaire who's, managing our money. I'm like, that's a bad thing? I was like, that sounds like a good thing. Oh, right. My God.
We have a very successful private market actor who's helping us with our finances.
Yeah.
And that's a problem. What's a problem to me is when the Pentagon can't account for $1.2 trillion.
Yeah.
Okay. I see that as a much bigger issue. But as long as they're doing this, right, I'm just because they're doubling down. And I've always said, and I don't think it's ever been more true, but the saving grace of liberals or progressives, I should say, the saving grace of progressives is that they have absolutely zero self-awareness and they always overplay their hand.
Yeah.
And If they didn't, I think that they'd be nearly impossible to beat. But they have that self-destruct feature that just is ever present.
Yeah, well, let's hope Republicans don't overplay their hand. I was talking to somebody the other day, like pride cometh before the fall, and so let's not dig too deep. Let's stay in the land of reason. Zach Abraham, we appreciate it. Do we want to tease our new project?
Yeah,
Oh
I'm
my
all about
gosh!
it.
Speaking of, so starting next week, Zach Abraham is going to join us for a weekly show called Doge Report. We're going to report on all things Doge and other things happening in the economy. And so we'll see. I mean, hopefully Doge lasts longer than like 2 to 3 months, but we'll ride out the Doge train as long as we can.
Yeah, I have a feeling that if that train comes in earlier than we expect, I think there's going to be plenty of other things to focus on. And meanwhile, I've already got a bunch of great hits for the first show, just because what they're doing right now is really kind of fantasy land for a bunch of people like me that have been sitting there going, "There's so much crap to cut, and nobody ever does it," and they are now. It's just beautiful to see.
Yeah, it's awesome. So if Doge goes away, we'll call it the show formerly known as Doge Report, and then we'll just continue.
Yeah, the show formerly known as.
Love
right?
it. Love it. Yep. All right, Zach. Appreciate it.
All right, ladies. Thanks for having me as always.
Yeah, so that should be fun. I think there's so much going on with Doge, and I'm so interested in it. So rather than have Zach on the Thursday show, we're going to put out totally separately from our regular show, just a 30-minute show a week, where we're going to talk about all things Doge. It's going to be Doge Watch, and then, of course, we'll talk about some economic news as part of it, and that way you can kind of consume that separately in your free time and all that, but I think it'll be really, really fun. So we enjoy having Zach on. They will remain a sponsor of our show. However, of course, we'll still be talking about Zach Abraham and Bulwark Capital every day on the show. Zach and his team specialize in managing risk. As you can tell, he's very in tune to what's happening politically and in the markets and globally, and they use all of that information every day with their analysts to manage your risk and make sure that your retirement has as much upside as possible. So knowyourriskradio.com, knowyourriskradio.com. Ask them for a free Know Your Risk portfolio review. So we look forward to Doge Watch. It'll be a blast. I love it. All right, what are we going to do? Comments? Let's do it. Oh, yeah, I just found out while we were on the show that an event I was going to be speaking at in Seattle tonight is canceled. So if you bought tickets to the event, they're rescheduling it, and I don't think they've put the date yet, but I was going to be, because Matt Gilbert said, I was going to see if anyone else was going to the Seattle City Club Civic Cocktail to hear Brandi be a panelist, but just got an email saying it has been postponed due to the weather. I'm glad it's due to the weather and not something else. Right. I always assume if it's a Seattle event that they're just going to cancel on me because people get mad that I'm there. But no, Seattle City Club, I haven't been invited to a City Club Civic Cocktail since I was in mainstream news. So it's kind of interesting that they invited me to be on the panel to talk about bridging political divides and politics, what's happening locally and nationally. So maybe they're starting to realize that, hey, we need to include some more diverse voices in the conversation, but they're going to be rescheduling it. So, if you want to buy a ticket, I'm sure they'll open back up ticket sales for that, but it would have been fun. I was very much looking forward to it.
I'm going to Hamilton tonight. I haven't heard it's canceled yet.
Oh, nice. Okay.
Yeah, so I don't know if they're canceling everything.
The situation isn't that bad.
I think it's supposed to pick up around 6 tonight or something like that. Okay. So I think it's supposed to start snowing later. So
I hope not, because I got to flight out tomorrow. Again, we're not having a show tomorrow. I'm going to be at LibertyCon in D.C. with the Libertarians. Oh my God. I hope Javier comes. Javier Milei.
Oh.
Oh my gosh. I hope he makes a surprise appearance. I would lose my mind. I haven't heard he's going to. That's just my dream wish list. Captain Cranky Pants. I'm also bringing my brother, my older brother, who is Donald Trump's literal don't tell the secret. Yeah. Donald Trump's literal #1 fan. And I was like, why don't you come to DC? Well, I'm in DC. We'll tour the Capitol. Congressman Newhouse's staff is nice enough to give us a tour of the Capitol while we're there. And we'll go around and see some of the sites and stuff. I've never really been in DC long enough to enjoy some of the sites. Yeah. And so, yeah, we're going to do that. It'll be a ton of fun.
I like it.
All right.
Brother-sister bonding.
Yes, I agree. Captain Cranky Pants, to the Seattle parents who plan to... I can't read this one, Nicole. Can I?
Yeah.
Oh. Captain Cranky Pants, to the Seattle parents who plan to flee the country, I say don't let the door hit you where the good Lord split you in the butt.
I mean... I just think it's terrible what they're doing to their child.
100%. You're going to pull them out of the country because they can't get their breast chopped off.
Well, and
YouTube's going to take this episode down, isn't it? Is YouTube going to take this episode down?
Nope.
I don't know.
Hope not.
Weiss Castle. If a parent really believes what's best for their trans daughter is to have her breasts lobbed off, then flee, but still doesn't mean I want our hospitals doing it. I agree. And also, can I just say on YouTube, our friend Jonathan Cho has been in YouTube prison for like 15 months. just got his account back. So go find Cho Show and give him a little follow and support. Now he's out of YouTube
jail.
prison. So that's a long stay. I mean, he spent more time in YouTube prison than some of the J6ers.
Wow.
Spent in real prison, federal prison. Weiss Castle.
I wonder if he's learned his lesson.
And he didn't post anything bad. He literally
there was some nakedness.
Yeah, but that's not. So
It's
this
on
is the
the
crazy
streets.
thing. Can we just talk quickly about why Jonathan
sure.
Cho got put in YouTube jail? Do we have time?
Yeah.
We got a little bit of time. Well, my event got canceled. We have all the time in
you're
the world.
good now.
So Jonathan Cho got 2 kind of strikes on his YouTube account. He got one because he posted a video of the Seattle Pride Parade and men with their shalongs out around kids. Now, he blurred everything. But
I didn't know he blurred everything.
He blurred it. So you're telling me that Jonathan Cho can't post a newsworthy thing on YouTube because, kids might see blurred schlongadongs, but it's okay for kids to be at the parade in real life seeing them?
I didn't know
So
they
that
were
was number
blurred.
1. Yeah, he said he blurred it.
What?
Number 2 was he posted a video of how bad downtown Seattle is. And it was a man defecating on the streets. He blurred the defecation area. Strike. So Jonathan Cho wants to show what's actually happening, the depth of how bad things are. And it's so grotesque, YouTube won't even let him put it up. But we'll live with it? That's just crazy. He's back, baby. I love it.
That's crazy. But wait,
yeah.
it was 2 strikes, you're out?
For him, apparently, I guess. I don't know what the strike rules are, if there's anyone. That's what I've talked about. So there could have been another one. I don't know. Oh, where was I at?
Welcome back.
Welcome back, Cho Show. Hello, Watermelon says Seattle Children's has been so top notch every time we've had to go. The trans thing is such a dark stain on their credibility. And that's the point I was making earlier is they save a lot of children's lives. They're deserving of financial support for doing that. I mean, they are. A lot of people I heard in the comments give annually to Seattle Children's. So I think it's thank God Seattle Children's said we can't sacrifice all of that for these controversial surgeries because we can't save other kids' lives if we continue to do these. So,
But there are a lot of policies that they need to look at. And
I agree.
And, actually consider that there might be some research out there that shows that some things aren't the best.
Yes, 100%. And that's the point Nicole made before our show that I didn't even touch on is they're not saying in their statement, hey, this isn't the right thing to do, so we're not going to do it. They're just saying, we'll lose money if we do it. So we'd like them to get to the point where they're recognizing that cutting off the healthy breasts of a 16-year-old girl is horrifying. To me, it should be medical malpractice. I mean, it's just insane. All right, let's see here.
There's lots of
super chats. Why are you guys giving me so much money today?
Yeah, so nice.
Oh my gosh, is it because it's such a good show? Right? Yes. Baron of Gray Matter, AG Bondi stops funding for sanctuary cities and opens investigations of NGOs, including arrests for both Puget Sound. And I'll say about that, apparently there's going to be mayors of sanctuary cities testifying in front of Congress. And so Seattle is one of the sanctuary cities that they have their eye on. So whether Bruce Harrell's going to have to go testify in front of Congress, this is going to get it's already interesting very quickly, but it's going to get even more interesting. Two Ladies Midwest Adventures, a $20 super chat. Much love from all of us. Wanted to send our support. We are currently homeschooling now, and both my daughters are doing fantastic. By the way, Jenny's birthday was on Sunday, Groundhog's Day. Happy birthday, Jenny. Two Ladies Midwest Adventures. Oh, that was an addition. Oh, yeah. I forgot to mention, Julietta wanted to say hi to you, Brandi. She loves your dog pictures too. We hope you and Mike are doing great. Thanks. Mike got down on me yesterday because he said I have too many pictures on my phone of the dogs.
And I mean, this is a couple weeks after he told you you need friends that don't bark.
Yeah, he basically said that I shouldn't tell people that Lucky's my best friend. And I'm like, why wouldn't I? He's like, just don't tell people that. I'm like, who's your best friend? He's like, Todd, his friend Todd. I'm like, look, Lucky is my best friend. I mean, no offense, Nicole, but she's there for me, and she doesn't judge. And she'll let me pet her. And Nicole's not going to let me pet her.
And I judge a little.
Yeah, and she's real judgy. Super judgy. Matt Gilbert says, President Trump said I would get tired of winning. I am still not tired of winning. Enjoy your trip to D.C. and don't break Lincoln's head. Yeah, I won't do to the Lincoln Memorial what I did to our Abe Lincoln, although Nicole has fixed it pretty well with super glue. So he's here to stay. Denise Young, $10 super chat for a celebration drink on the plane. If you're flying coach, I didn't book my flight. The Libertarians booked it for me.
You're in coach.
You check? That's fine. I never fly first class. I never fly first class, so
Get an upgrade.
I mean, sometimes if the upgrade's cheap, like, why not? Yeah. Elise Russell, 1999. Just because today has so much good news is. Thank you, Brandi. I love that you put news is. That makes me happy. Thank you, Diane Manning. Sorry, all the emotional support. Sorry, all the emotional support thing has gone too far. I am biased. I had an aunt who was blind and had a seeing eye dog. Lots of training, completely different. Yeah, totally different. If you need a seeing eye dog, I think even Nicole would be okay with you bringing it on the day.
Absolutely.
Yes.
And a trained animal that's helping you guide people. That's different.
Can I tell you something I did this morning that I'm kind of ashamed of?
Uh-oh.
Tell me if this makes me a bad person.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll say it. I think it does.
Okay.
So I'm sitting on the couch this morning having my morning espresso, right? Mm-hmm. And it's an L couch, and Lucky's all the way over on the other side of the L. Mm-hmm. And she's just laying there and look at me. Like, and I'm thinking, come over here. Come on. Mm-hmm. You know, and she's not moving. I'm like, come on.
She don't want to snuggle.
You know, and I snuggle with her all night. Like, she loves snuggles. Okay, I almost don't want to tell this story.
Oh, no.
So I fake cried, and then she came right over to me.
Where is that?
I was like, whoa. And she's like, what's wrong, Mom? She came over and licked me in the face. Is that bad?
That is terrible.
Mike says that's awful. Don't do that.
That's mean.
I really needed some love. We're way off
so
today.
Smart, though.
She's so smart. She knew I was sad. Linda Lane, keep it up. Washington is a communist state. Stop mail-in ballots as they are bloated with fraud. The Reaper's son. Do you think there's hope for political competition and voices of reason in Washington? It seems that Washington Democrats aren't even concerned about the illegality, unconstitutionality of the bills they're pushing. Yeah, I always have hope. Like I said, if I ever don't have hope for Washington, then I shouldn't do this show, because what good am I if I just sit here and complain and I don't have any hope about anything? I think if they raise taxes this session and they push through some of these soft on crime bills like 1178 and 1125, and Republicans, independents, common sense Democrats continually message on those things. You know, it happened in California. Why couldn't it happen here? He also said, blatant bigotry, historical revisionism, and gaslighting brought to you by our esteemed Washington State Department of Education. I pray Trump defunds this state. Yeah, let me see here. Camino Island drones. The only thing I know is we all die. I'm not afraid of death. I have come to... What is this about? The only thing I know is we all die. I'm not afraid of death. I have come to grips that life is different for everyone. It can be the best or it can be hell. I won't let my state government control my daily life. Yeah.
I just think that's a good point, right?
It is.
Like, don't let your government control your happiness.
Don't flee the country either because you can't get your child's breast cut off.
We gotta go. Yeah. Well, I mean, go ahead. You can go flee the country.
Yeah.
Do it. It's a free country.
Nicole's cat.
Yeah, we got a few last minute ones. Captain Cranky Pants, $20 for your YouTube bail fund.
Thank you.
And then Nicole's cat, Mom's Temu fund, $1.99.
Don't give your cat anything you buy on Temu. It's probably loaded with lead. Your cat will end up dead. Matt says, Mike's not your best friend? Mike's my lover. / husband.
Just husband. Let's just say husband. Lover's implied.
It's my lover.
Also, Marksman Hitman.
I swear we're not drunk today. We're just having a good time. We have a long weekend. I'm excited. Yeah.
Marksman Hitman says, can we have can we have a common sense month? I'll vote for that.
Yeah, common sense month. That's good.
Anyway,
it'll be in July because that's America's month.
I think we got them all. I hope we did,
if we didn't miss any, you guys are very generous today. Wow. I mean, you're generous every day. You're generous with your time and commitment and support of our show. And with that, poor Chuck Schumer. Let's get to our closing. Sanity check. All right, so the Democrats are in panic mode. They don't know Trump is winning so hard, and they're trying to figure out what narrative is going to stick with people. They tried the eggs thing last week. All the Democratic members of Congress were like, the price of eggs is still high. And that didn't go over well with people who are immune to the gaslighting. And so now they're going after Elon Musk because he's an unelected billionaire and he's going in and he's messing with our money and our funds that we're doling out to our cronies and allies. So anyway, Democrats were having this sad like rally type thing. Poor Chuck Schumer. Every time he tries to start a chant, it just doesn't quite catch on.
And we cannot allow Elon Musk and a small group of people to secretly, behind closed doors, take away our privacy, take away our dollars, take away everything we have. We are going to fight this fight. I am going to stand with you in this fight, and we will win. 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 We won't rest. We won't rest. We won't rest. We won't rest.
I feel bad for him. They're so uncool. They're so uncool.
Do you see the cane?
Yeah.
Their canes.
Oh, I'm never going to try to start a chant. Because that's worse than going up for a high five and somebody not high fiving you back. So I'm never even going to try to start a chant because I don't want people to not chant with me. Because that's just mortifying.
I don't like it.
So none of that. That has been your sanity check for today. That has been this week's episodes of Undivided. As a reminder, I will not be here tomorrow. We will not have a show. I'm going to DC. We will still have an episode of Politics Unpacked on Friday. And for subscribers, we have actually a fantastic interview for you for Sundays with subscribers. We're talking to the mother of a murder victim who left the state out of frustration for some of what's happening here in the soft on crime policies. And so she's going to talk to us about some of these things moving through Olympia. So all of that will be normal. It's just tomorrow you have a day free from me and Nicole. If you wanted one, I don't know. If you haven't signed up to support our show already, please do so. It makes a big difference, and we're able to do this show full time. Hang out with you guys in the noon hour. It's just $5 a month. undividedpod.com. In fact, we make it really easy. You just go to undividedpod.com, click on support the show for $5. That's it. Then you're signed up for a monthly contribution to Common Sense. That's it, Nicole. Enjoy your long weekend.
Hey, you two have fun. Be safe.
Nicole.
And dress freaking warm.
Yeah, I got to dress
it's so
warm.
cold.
So my brother's coming in from Minnesota. So I think even DC won't be very cold to him. He'll be like, wow, this is nice. Okay. All right. For the rest of you, we'll see you Monday at noon. Ta-ta.